everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Laura Smothers Chu, and I am the CEO and founder of Befriended Heart, where I help long distance daughters navigate their parents' dementia. So today I am thrilled to bring on a new friend of mine. You may have seen her on YouTube, and we are going to talk today about her approach, which is very different from what I've learned in my dementia training, and I really love it. I totally resonate with it. I found that I was doing that myself with my dad before even realizing that it was an approach. So her name is Rachael Wonderlin. She is a dementia care consultant, and she's also an author of 2 books. She is the owner of Dementia by Day, and she is based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So as I mentioned, she's on YouTube. She's been there for, she's had a blog about dementia care for years. And she is currently challenging the dementia care model, which I think is awesome. I think we really need innovation in this area of healthcare. I mean, in all of healthcare, but specifically in dementia care. So Rachael, welcome to Joy in Dementia. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your expertise?
Sure. So I have a master's degree in gerontology, which is the study of aging. I've been started volunteering in like a skilled nursing facility when I was about 15 or so. I have 2 books published with Johns Hopkins University Press. My first audiobook will be coming out soon.
Yay.
And my 3rd book is done, but not out. That'll probably be out next year. So I started my company in late 2016, and I now work with senior living company clients. So I work primarily with big companies, small to large companies who need a better dementia care program. They either have one and it's not great, or they have one that they haven't fully rolled out and they need help with the rolling out process, or they just don't have a program at all and they realize it's a necessity. So
Awesome. And you also work with individual family caregivers as well, right?
I do a little bit. Most of my paid work is with companies, but my monthly and weekly emails really go out to family caregivers, and that's really who my books are for. So it's kind of it's like a whole circle. So a lot of times communities will purchase large quantities of my book to give to their residents' families. So a lot of times I'm helping family clients through the community side of things.
That is awesome, because honestly, I would have loved to get your book when my dad was in memory care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great idea. And do you have personal experience with dementia? I know you mentioned a little bit about your professional experience.
So not exactly. My grandmother had glioblastoma in her occipital lobe when I was 16, which was obviously fatal. And so that is, you could say, a cause of dementia, but I don't have the traditional like dementia experience that I think people think of when they think of family caregiving. There was that. And then I've helped one-to-one families like before graduate school, and then a little bit when I was transitioning to having my own business. I needed some extra income, so I went over to a woman's house and helped take care of her one-to-one twice a week.
Awesome. And did you also take care of your great aunt as well?
Yeah, it was my great aunt. That was a summer between graduate school programs. Yeah.
Awesome. And so you got some experience with the one-on-one kind of home care giving, which is really important to inform, what you're talking to families about.
I've also consulted for home care companies like Asbury Home Services and Home and Said Senior Care have hired me for various consulting projects and education.
Awesome. Yeah. And you also have some great webinars. So I definitely recommend if you're not on Rachel's email list, I'm actually on Rachel's email list.
Yeah.
But, checking out some of her webinars. A lot of them are a majority of them are free actually, because it's
Yes.
through these healthcare companies. So I highly
Right.
recommend checking those out. I think it's pretty obvious how those experiences shaped your career. You said you've been interested in elders since you were really, really young. And then in addition to your personal experience, you're just like, okay, this is where I need to be, right? And
Right.
that's why you started Dementia by Day. Can you also talk about how you were noticing in your experience working in memory care, how what you were taught was not exactly what your experience was, and that's where
Right.
this embrace their reality came from?
Yeah, I think everyone has started in dementia care, learns the same stuff. And frankly, I've found it to be difficult to explain to family members the typical Teepa Snow, Naomi Fail way of thinking, which is just like, oh, just redirect, just distract, just validate them. I find that that's very confusing because families are taught to never lie to somebody with dementia. And then they go, okay, I'm not going to lie. So I'm just going to tell this person exactly what my truth is, which is, the loved one they're asking about is dead. Right. And so people don't understand what it means to say, like, don't lie. So they go, okay. And then they just go fully into like whatever the truth of the situation is. And I realized like, dementia care seems a little more gray than that black and white area. So maybe we need to teach something different. So I started working on the concept of embracing their reality back in 2014, 2015. It wasn't until recently that I really started like capitalizing the words in the phrase and actually submitted it for trademark. It took me a long time to kind of realize like, oh, wow, what I'm teaching is really different from what's out there.
Mhm.
Which is that you actually just need to live in the world of the person with dementia instead of just saying, sounds like you're worried, or let's go do this. Actually solving the emotional problem that the person's having and not worrying so much about the physical one they're presenting to you.
Can you talk about your friend on the bus, and that's where you realized that
Oh, yeah.
redirection and all of those things weren't working? Because I love that
Yeah.
story.
So my friend slash resident Eileen had gone out to a doctor's appointment, came back on our community bus, wouldn't get off the bus, wanted it to take her to her house. And of course the bus is not going to take her to her house because where she lives now is our dementia care community. But the whole staff's trying to convince her, you have to get off the bus, you live here now. And obviously that's not working. So it took me a long time too to think like, okay, I've been taught, never to lie. So what do we do? Well, because telling her the truth, which is that she lives here now, is not going well. And then telling her, trying to like validate her feelings or redirect her is not working. She's not at a point where she's easily distracted or redirected. She's just pissed that I'm trying to get her off this bus. What I ended up doing was having the bus driver drive us around to the back of the building and saying to her, hey, Eileen, let's get off at this hotel, stay here for a minute. Another bus will come and pick us up, and that'll take you home. And that worked. That was like 2 hours into the process. So, what do we do instead, right? How do we actually solve her emotional problem and not worry about what our truth is? Instead,
Right.
do what's true for her. Yeah.
Right. Maybe it's because my dad had dementia and I can just really connect to this, but be in their shoes, right? It's like
Right.
a Twilight Zone movie where you're just trying to get something done. Everyone's
Right.
like, oh, you must be feeling really upset. Yes, I'm feeling upset.
Right.
Let's go to
Yeah.
this place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why don't we do this? No, I don't want to do that. Why are you not listening to me? Why do you not understand?
Right.
And it is like being in another reality. And I love that because it's relieving the person's anxiety. Like I feel like it really comes down to anxiety, You're just relieving their anxiety. And then
Right.
like then they can move
Right.
forward and they feel great, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that story because we do learn that. And I think, is there a specific stage of dementia where this really, really helps? Like if redirection's not working or validation isn't working, that it's especially helpful?
I think it's really a lifestyle. I don't think that there's a particular stage to use it in. I think it's an all the time thing because it is just a dance. It allows you to be flexible in someone's world and find out what's true for them. You can even ask questions like, where do you think your mom is? okay, let's do that. Whatever they say is the right answer. So I think of it more of a lifestyle choice than yeah, than, like, okay, we're only going to use it X, Y, and Z. I think it's something to use all the time.
Yeah.
It's just the way that I approach dementia.
Yeah. I love that approach. And I think you said in the webinar where I saw you talk about Eileen
Mhm.
that she was also in the earlier stages too. So redirection didn't really work, like validation didn't really
Yeah.
work.
She had moderate stages of dementia, but the problem is she was early moderate. So she was just confused enough to be confused, but she was also not confused enough where she couldn't make a really legitimate argument as to why she wasn't getting off that bus. Like, you
Mhm.
weren't going to be able to be like, oh, let's go inside to eat. She literally said, I'm not falling for that. I am not doing it. So she was at like a perfect space where you're not going to talk her into something or out of something. That wasn't going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that this is a lifestyle approach
Mhm.
and embracing the reality. So, what are the most common situations as someone as a long distance daughter that's right now, especially with the pandemic, only able to talk to their forgetful parent on the phone, whether it's like delusions or hallucinations or things like that?
Always, always, always just listen to where their reality is and choose to go there. I think listening is a key element of this because if you don't know where someone's reality is and you just like bombard them with your thoughts on it, you're going to have a hard time. So, especially if you're communicating with somebody via phone, I think it's really important to truly hear what it is that they're saying and then, ask questions if you need clarification because you don't want to come in with your own assumptions that what they said last week is exactly how they feel this week. And that may not be the case. So, you don't really want to you don't want to paint yourself into a corner, right, where you say the wrong thing because you have assumed that what they thought last week is the same as
Right. And that can be so hard for us as daughters because
yeah.
that's very different from the relationship that we used to have with them, right? Because they probably won't be able to remember the last interaction or what you talked about. But they'll remember the tone of voice that you had, they'll
Mhm.
remember how they felt during that experience. So it's still important for us to be as loving and, as you said, like listening as well as we can, but also remembering every conversation is a new adventure.
Yeah.
Where are we today? And so that's why I
Yes.
love the question that you have is if they said, where's my wife? And you say, well, where do you think they are?
Yeah.
Right. And so for daughters who don't feel comfortable lying, and that was actually me because my dad, his biggest value was honesty is the best policy. And so I just had so much guilt and I, didn't know what to do in these situations, especially
Mhm.
when he started to have dementia. And so I think the where do you think they are is a lot easier for my conscience to kind of go along and
Mhm.
embrace this reality without necessarily lying, right? I think too,
Yeah.
and Rachel, you have experience with improv, and I was in drama club, so it's sort of like taking that role,
Mhm.
and so it's not necessarily lying; it's just playing along in a game. That's fun, and this game actually helps you have a stronger relationship with your forgetful parent, right? Just imagine if you were trying to tell someone about your day, your daughter, your son about your day, and they're just like, "No, mom, that's not right. No,
Right.
mom, that's not right. No, mom, why would you think that? I can't believe you were saying that. Like, what? Or
Yeah.
cutting you off or things like that. That would hurt a lot, right? So I think in the grand scheme of things, it's really the relationship that matters, the strength of the relationship, and that you're being loving and listening. And it doesn't really matter what you guys are talking about, as long as you are relieving the anxiety for your forgetful parent.
Totally. I always tell people just take the word lying, throw it away, and replace it with, you're doing what's true for them.
Yeah.
So instead of getting hung up on, you know, our truth, it's not that you're being, untruthful. It's that you're choosing what's true for that person at that time.
Yes. And you're doing it in an act of love, right?
Right.
you're not doing it to deceive them.
No, and I think
You
that's
know?
part of, people hear lying, or like I hate the word fiblets, or like white lies, because usually if you're lying to somebody, you're trying as yourself to like get out of a situation, or like avoid getting in trouble. And that's the complete opposite of what you're doing here, because you're really trying to give this person a gift by letting what's true for them be true.
Yeah, I think in society, we're shamed about lying. And it's
Sure.
also a more of like a selfish act, whereas this is the most selfless act that you could do
Yeah.
for your forgetful parent. You're probably one of the only people in their life that's actually listening to them and helping them feel better. I want to ask you too, and just trying to think of all these things that daughters have brought to me.
Sure.
So what if this is the story that your dad has told you probably 20,000 times? Do you just try to bite your tongue and listen to them because you're trying to improve that relationship?
I like to entertain myself by answering in a different way. So I had a resident who would ask me what time it was, like pretty much every time she saw me. So I would respond in a different way, not with a different necessarily answer, but in a different tone of voice,
Hmm.
or with like a different way that I would position my body. And then there were days where I was just like, and I just had to leave the room for a minute, you know what I mean, before I could answer that question for the billionth time. So it's really about, yeah, having patience, answering it again or listening to it again, but maybe trying to respond differently. Or in the case of he's told the same story a million times, maybe asking a different question about that memory. Maybe trying to find something out new that you didn't know before, and giving him the space, but then also um, trying to entertain yourself so you're not ready to, just lay down for a nap after listening to that story for the 12th time, right?
Right. Yes. The goal is to try to be as loving as possible when you are giving them that answer.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other thing too, I want to share just from my experience, and since my dad had aphasia and had really a lot of trouble word finding even in the
Yes.
beginning, I think, I guess it was partly a blessing in the sense that I didn't need to hear stories over and over again, but I sort
Mhm.
of wish that he could still talk
Sure.
later on in the disease. So what I found was really helpful was I would tell him about my day just to be able to engage him in
Mhm.
conversation. But then I would also share memories of us together.
Mhm.
And so it was engaging him, it was engaging his mind. And I knew that he understood what I was saying,
Right.
right? He just couldn't express himself.
Right.
And so would you say, Rachel, that's a good way to embrace their reality, especially if your parent has aphasia or issues, being nonverbal?
Yeah, I think it's important to still have conversations with people who can't speak.
Yeah.
So, by sharing your own thing going on, or even just engaging with them physically if you're working on a task together, you know, doing things that don't put pressure on them to speak if they cannot find the words, or if that day, it's not happening. Or if there's someone who really has gotten to the point where they're going to form a sentence every so often, but other than that, you're not going to hear too much from them. So, yeah, continuing the conversation in whatever way that conversation can be continued.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'm really glad you said that people that, especially with dementia, are not able to speak, they still need to be in conversations. Because
Yeah.
I remember my dad was in rehab and there was a speech therapist that was like,
Ugh.
"Oh, I'm not going to visit your dad because he's nonverbal." I was just like, what? You know?
I'm really like 60-40 on speech therapists. I've had so many negative interactions with speech therapists who think that they understand dementia or they know everything about it.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I was so mad. And at that point, I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I can't be here every day, but I need my dad to be engaged,
Yeah.
intellectually and activity wise. And so that's when I really thought about
Yeah.
hiring someone to come in and just engage him during the day.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're in this industry, right? To be like, okay,
You have to be that person's advocate,
yes,
unfortunately,
yes.
because a lot of times there's really no one else is going to be their advocate, not just like for that person, but also just in general, educating others about what dementia is and what a person with dementia needs.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And then I'm just thinking about one other situation. So
Mhm.
let's say that this is a common delusion I think that people with dementia have. So let's say I'm talking with my mom on the phone
Mhm.
and she said, you know, your dad stole my purse. I don't know why he would do that. He knows that I love my purse and all my important things are in there. I can't believe he stole my purse. I'm really upset about this. How would you respond as a daughter embracing her reality?
Right. So this is one of those situations where, again, it's such a gray area and you want to kind of walk that line. My response is always to not negate the paranoia, but not to give into it fully. So a great answer could be something like, that doesn't sound like something that he would do, but I'm going to look into it for you. So it's like, if someone's like, oh, he's cheating, it's always like somebody's cheating on somebody or someone's stealing money, or the bonus one is the combo. So to say, I don't know, that doesn't sound right, but I'm going to look into it for you. So you're not completely blowing them off. The response could be, that's stupid. That's not happening, right? We don't want to do that because then the person's going to get more angry and more paranoid. So you're just going to accept it, go, I don't know. Let me solve it. So then you're going to take the burden on yourself to solve it. And obviously you're not going to look into it. There's nothing to look into, right?
Yeah.
But you're you're accepting the burden and you're going to make it go away, you know?
Yeah, which I think is great because your parent who they're accusing about taking her purse is not doing that.
Right.
Like you're
Or,
just like,
yeah. Or,
I am not taking your purse for the 50th time. You know what I
right.
mean? So
Right.
someone needs to relieve that anxiety for your
Right.
forgetful parent, and that can be you. Okay, last situation. So let's say I am talking with my dad on video chat,
Mhm.
and he suddenly starts freaking out about spiders crawling on the wall. And he has, let's say he's always hated spiders and they are tarantulas that are crawling up the wall.
Oof.
How do you react as a daughter by also not taking on that fear and freaking
Mhm.
out about it yourself, but embracing his reality?
I would see those spiders as well. You always want to see what that person is seeing. And then you want to make sure that if this is something that's not happening to him for regularly, like if he doesn't normally hallucinate like that, we definitely want to make sure that where he's living, the people who are helping to provide that care are getting him checked for a urinary tract infection, making sure that he doesn't have any medications that could be causing this, um, exacerbating these hallucinations. But we want to see the spiders. We don't want to say, that's not real, that's not happening, because that's just going to be really upsetting. You know, if you're seeing something and then someone tells you it's not real, like that doesn't make, then you just feel crazy, right? And then
Again, like you
feel
are
nuts.
in the horror movie right now. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
no one
Yeah.
else
Like
sees the
you're
spider.
alone. Yeah. You're alone in this. You're the only person who sees it. Yeah. No, like that doesn't feel good. Right? Like it doesn't feel good. Nobody wants to feel crazy.
Yeah. So let's say you say, okay, Dad, I do see the spiders. Then
Yeah.
how do you stop that hallucination for him? You're on video chat, so could you just say, I'll call the spider exterminators? You
Yeah,
know?
you could say, I'm going to call somebody for you and get that taken care of. Well, maybe just calmly just walk out of the room and go sit in another room while the staff takes care of it, something like that. Obviously, it is tougher when everything's tougher on video chat, but to get that person to leave the space while you get the staff to go in and like take care of the spiders.
Yeah, yeah. Or if he's, talking from your parents' house, you can just say, "Oh, I'll talk with mom and she has this special spider removal spray that she will spray."
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That
Solving the problem.
yeah. That's where a lot of the improv comes in, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're signed up for my agreeing to remember my improv dementia thing we're doing, my workshop. So that'll be fun. And we teach these improv skills, like what we normally do on stage, and how to use them in dementia. And that's been really helpful to a lot of people because, before when you're just explaining dementia care communication, it can be kind of hard to grasp. But when you're explaining it in the context, how do we actually teach new improvisers some of these basic improv skills? If they overlap, I mean, they're all communication skills. It's all about like listening and being able to move forward with whatever information is being gifted to you.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So
It'll
I
be fun.
will hopefully bring some nuggets to this channel. So lots of really good information in here. I think these are the most common issues that long distance daughters notice with their forgetful parent in dementia stages.
Yeah.
So, if you had to sum up this interview to one takeaway point specific to long distance daughters who are also secondary caregivers, what would it be?
Finding, I mean, I have about a million points, as you know, so I would condense it to say, embracing someone's reality takes a lot of practice, and it takes you messing it up and doing it again and thinking, that went fine, but maybe I could do it better next time, right? So dementia care communication in general takes practice and patience, not just with that person, but also with yourself, to recognize that you're going to mess it up occasionally. And that's fine, because you get to try again later, right?
Absolutely. I think that's there's not many great things about dementia, but I think one great thing is that you have myriad opportunities to do things differently, because the only thing they're going to remember is that you had the intention of love, and they'll feel that, right?
Yes.
They won't remember the conversation.
No, they're not going to remember the conversation, just really how you made them feel about it. So if you came away on a positive note, or if you yourself learned something from it to maybe do something better later, I think it was a good interaction.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the embrace their reality and the examples that we gave, because I think it's especially hard right now with the pandemic, but then we're like, oh my God, we have lives of our own. We have families of our own. How do we manage doing this? But hopefully you're talking with your forgetful parent at least on a weekly basis. And so when you have these conversations, and if you come to these challenges, embracing their reality is a really good way to keep your relationship emotionally strong, especially during this time where we feel like we're especially distant, right? But also helping your forgetful parent feel a lot less stressed. So awesome.
Yeah.
So Rachael, where can my viewers find you? I think you're in a lot of places, but where would you like to direct them?
The easiest place to find all things is rachelwonderlin.com. It's RACHAEL Wonderlin.com. Although if you spell it wrong, I also bought that domain name, so you could find it there too. So rachelwonderlin.com, I have a lot of stuff on there, my links, and I do 5 days of my best content. So if you sign up for that email, you'll get my favorite things. And then I have some free downloads on my products page. So that's a nice little bonus.
Yeah, lots of good stuff. So definitely check that out. And thank you so much, Rachael, for joining me today. I know that you've been traveling around the country doing some work and consulting and things like that. So I really appreciate your sharing your time today.
Sure. Yeah, it's been fun.
And thank you so much for joining. And I hope that this interview has been helpful. And make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Check out my website. I'm offering some one-on-one daughter-to-daughter consulting. And I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.